And we're live. Welcome to this edition of Liberty First Roundtable discussion tonight. Tonight, we're not going to get it too far in depth or too far in the weeds with anything. We're going to basically allow you guys to get to know us a little bit more. Um, Take some time, just basically talk back and forth, shoot the shit, and figure out where it goes. So with that, I'm joined with Frank, not a biologist, Johnson, and Michael Vasquez.
All right,
I'm Mike Marshall.
Just so everybody understands that like every other organization that's out there, we may all have may all operate under one common umbrella, but each of us has our own views, our own political viewpoints, our own whatever it is. We always look at things from a different perspective. We all come at things from different life experiences, but we always all share the same thing in that we err on the side of liberty. Yes. And we try to always err on the side of what's right, what's prudent, what's constitutional. Even if it's something that flies in the face of what one of us may or may not believe, that's part of living in this society that we know of as America, is that sometimes you don't always get your way because it's not a matter of the majority. It's a matter of what is right, what is wrong. So one of us may say or have a certain viewpoint that the other ones disagree with. Some people in the audience might agree or might disagree with. That's the beauty of America. That's the beauty of this whole wonderful experiment that we have, the laboratory of liberty.
So that's the whole thing, is we need to have these open discussions, open dialogues. When we fail to have these open dialogues, all we do is create division. Okay. Because if we're not having these discussions, we can't come together with a solution.
How do you know?
Right now, most of our politicians are working to keep us divided. And I understand that from a political party aspect, that's their purpose. But from the fact that we are called the United States should mean a lot. And we need to start having these open dialogues. And instead of being so divided, we need to start coming together.
Well, I always love it. And I think people should find it interesting. You only advance as a society. And I think Jordan Peterson mentioned this a little bit as well. The only way we move forward as individuals and as a society is when we speak. And sometimes that means we're going to disagree. And that's perfectly fine. Disagreement is a good thing. It gives us a new challenge. If people didn't disagree about the Earth being the center of the universe, we would never get past Copernicus. If we didn't believe that someone said the Earth isn't flat, we wouldn't have Columbus coming to America. We wouldn't have the world bound.
Right.
You don't advance anything if you don't have a discussion and accept that, not everyone's going to agree with you, and that's okay. I always like to believe that.
Well, exactly. And through that discussion, it allows all of us to grow, all of us to learn. And that's probably the most important aspect of having open dialogues. Okay, because I'm not right about everything. And I've learned a lot through discussions that I've had with people that I don't necessarily agree with. But I've learned stuff from those discussions.
And in the spirit of that discussion, I happen to be wearing the perfectly appropriate T-shirt that says, "I am the shooting instructor. Let's just assume that I'm never wrong." So that's the shirt that I'm wearing this evening. But let's talk about a couple of things that happened this week. Let's just spitball a couple of things.
There's two that got me going.
Right, what was your first one?
The good news was coming out of Indiana. where we're looking at the governor of Indiana removed the requirement for concealed carry permits. He got rid of them because you don't need them. Because the Constitution, the Second Amendment, makes it very clear. You don't need a permit to be able to conceal carry, which goes to what I was talking about last week. I want to see every woman in America to be armed, or to make it known that they may be armed at all times and that they're trained. And this is another step towards that. And I think it's great news. So that's in Indiana. That was Governor Eric Holcomb. And I think he did a great job for the people of Indiana. And I'd like to see more states follow that. So
Right.
that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about.
Right. We just saw last week Ohio had their turn at bat. And we also saw in the recent days that Kristi Noem has decided that she signed an executive order that pretty much eliminates any fees and costs associated with people going and getting their concealed carry permits, which is in and of itself a tremendous thing, because we always have a lot of people that we talk to that say that the cost of these things is onerous. And by having all of these fees associated with it, that it's almost like a poll tax. You know, we eliminated poll taxes in this country years ago, where you had to pay a tax in order to go exercise your right to vote. Well, having these fees for the background checks and all the rest of this stuff, the government knows who you are. They can do a background check in 30 seconds, to make the determination whether or not you, in whatever state that you live in, are eligible to have that. Why you have to pay an additional fee. A lot of the people that really need to have that concealed carry permit, or to be able to defend themselves, are people who live in extremely low income areas where crime rates are staggeringly high, and you wind up putting a burden on them where they can't exercise their right because they can't get past that first financial threshold, which is paying the 1, 2, 3, 4, however many hundreds of dollars it is, just to be able to get that piece of paper that says, oh, by the way, we're now allowing you to exercise your constitutional right.
So that's the thing, and the whole purpose behind those fees was to create a system where underprivileged people were not able to meet that financial burden. Okay, it is literally a means of controlling who has firearms and who doesn't.
Yeah, and then they turn around and they use the argument that say that the Second Amendment is a tool of the wealthy. And meanwhile, they're the ones that put the roadblocks up so that those that don't have the financial equity in order to be able to afford these things, are priced out of their liberties before they even get a chance to start.
Well, exactly. Okay.
Well, that's HR 127. That's the recent bill, Senate bill in New York, S1605. We keep hearing them. I mean, in New York State, it costs $600 to go through the licensing process right now. And with HR 127, with S1605, they're looking to add another burden, both of time and of money. Oh, you have to have a psych evaluation. You have to go through insurance that has to be purchased. You're pricing it out of the range of the poor, which is predominantly, or a large part of that, are minorities, including women. And then they want to turn around and say, well, this is only for rich people. It's because you locked out everyone else.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing.
And to tell you the God's honest truth, I mean, a lot of people in the Second Amendment community don't really do ourselves any favors for the people who are underprivileged and don't have the financial resources to do it, because they refer to them as the poors. And you'll have somebody who maybe it's a single mom, maybe she's a waitress, maybe she's a telephone operator, whatever it is that she's doing. Maybe she delivers for Uber, and she could barely scrape up enough money to wind up getting the permit. And when she finally goes and does it, she goes and gets the only firearm that she can afford, which is probably going to be like a high point, at $129. And then she'll get ridiculed because it's not a SIG. It's not a Smith & Wesson. It's not this. Look, it's a means of defending yourself. It gets the job done. maybe if we spent a little bit more time trying to peel back these onerous rules and regulations so that the cost of some of these things can come down, that first time gun buyers are able to buy themselves something that's a little bit more reliable, a little bit more concealable, a little bit more durable. Now, that's not to say that high points aren't durable. I've beaten the living crap out of those damn things. And, Shia just welding the barrel closed, it's going to go bang every time you pull the trigger. Kudos to them for, in my opinion, companies like High Point and Sky. These people are doing the great work because they're producing a product that people who would not necessarily be able to afford to defend themselves, getting them into fight, getting them in through that door. And, thank God that these companies exist, because if everybody had to go in and drop $600 or $700 on a firearm, there'd be a lot less people out there able to defend themselves. So,
Well, exactly. And I mean, it's getting to the point now where the only people that are going to be able to defend themselves are going to be the elite. And that's exactly what they want to make, is a system where our overlords are able to protect themselves, but yet we the people have to submit to our overlords because we don't have the means to protect ourselves.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me. And they always like to make these things seem like it's so bad for you. We're going to protect you. This is for you. We're making it hard for you, the law-abiding citizen. 99.994. This is the actual number. And anyone who doubts this, do the math yourself. Take all of the gun crime in America, not suicides, but everything else. Divide that number by 165 million. That's the number of people who actually own guns in America. And you will see it is 99.994 are the number of law-abiding gun owners, the percentage of law-abiding gun owners in America at any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they want to punish and want to take the guns away from, because the criminals don't care. They're not,
the criminals will never give up their guns.
licenses, permits. They could care less.
Okay. I mean, by their very nature, they're not law abiding. Okay.
Yeah,
that's the whole reason why they're a criminal.
Yeah.
By definition, you're right. Yeah.
Well, there's something that I've been trying to figure out how we could articulate it and put it together in a way where it needs to become a movement among the people in the states that require handgun permits. Whether or not you choose to own a gun or carry a gun or use one for sport shooting or hunting or recreation or target practice or defend, whatever the purpose is, as long as you believe that you have the individual right to own that firearm, I want to create a movement where every single person, whether they're going to get the gun or not, files for their concealed carry permit. Because the states generally don't know how many guns you have. What the states know is how many people have permits. Now, imagine, if you will. All right, I'm going to look this up real quick while we're sitting there. Total of New York pistol permit holders. And I had this not that long ago. I had to recall it. To sit and think of how many people in New York have a pistol permit. How many people would you think that was, Michael? And let me give me a guess.
That have a permit?
Yeah.
I would guess, if I said as a percentage, there's 20 million people. I'm guessing 15%. So somewhere around 3 million people, even though 1 in 5 people in New York State own a gun. So that's about 4 to 5 million.
All right. Now,
about half of the people who have a gun.
you'd be completely outrageously wrong.
Yeah.
now,
Oh,
now there's a reason. If you don't know how many people own guns or have pistol permits, I'm just focusing on pistol permits.
yeah. Okay.
You're going to assume by the numbers that are thrown out by the big groups like the NRA, Gun Owners of America, and stuff like that, and by the Justice Department and everybody else about what the percentage of people who own guns are.
Mm-hmm.
You would think that in a state with 20 million people, that there has to be at least a million and a half pistol owners in that state.
Yeah.
All right, you would have to think that it's 89,000.
What? Really?
That's it. There were 89. Well, the total number as of 2017 was 88,205 New Yorkers possessed a concealed carry permit.
That's ridiculous.
And
Right.
that actually doesn't surprise me because more people own long guns than they
Right.
do handguns.
Right. Now there are no permit. There are no licensing situations when it comes to long guns and shotguns in New York State. There is in New York City in the 5 boroughs. You've got to go through that whole process. But imagine if there was 1 million New Yorkers who own guns and say, yes, I believe in the Second Amendment, and went out tomorrow and filed for their concealed carry permit. Now think the governor sitting there looking at those documents every year when they look about how many people own guns, this and that, and it goes from, hey, wait a second, we have 88,000 people last year had pistol permits, and this year there's over 1 million. How do you think the structure of the voting system within the New York State Senate would change if all of a sudden, instead of less than 1% of New Yorkers having pistol permits, a full 5% had, or 10%, or 20%? I would love to be able to start a movement that says in every single state that requires that you own or that you get yourself a pistol permit in order to carry a gun, even if you don't intend on ever carrying it, go get the permit. Go get the permit.
I'll be right back, guys.
Okay. Let those numbers start rolling in. Let those numbers start rolling in, and let's start seeing the politicians when they start seeing how many people now have concealed carry permits. You watch how quickly gun rights in this country start to change. You watch how quickly you wind up having people like Inslee up there not signing magazine capacity bills like he just did. Now we've got 10-round capacity bills up in Washington State.
Mm-hmm.
You got states, one right after another, eliminating the pistol permit process because it's unconstitutional. And then you got another jackass up in Washington telling you how many bullets you're allowed to have and carry in your magazine.
And that's even been struck down by the court. That law has been struck down. It was struck down here in New York.
Right. But we know the whole thing is going to take another 6 to 7 years before Washington goes through the rigmarole of getting that thing struck down. And it's just going to be more pro Second Amendment money spent trying to defeat it when he can use taxpayer funding, mechanisms in order to keep it away from people. He doesn't care. He'll know it's going to get overturned eventually. Yeah. But again, it's part of wearing us down.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I think we've got to reverse that system and start wearing them down.
Well, that's the thing. And honestly, what I would love to see happen, okay, is as an elected representative, most of these people cannot be directly sued.
Yeah.
Okay. They have like a qualified immunity, like law enforcement does. Okay. However, law enforcement can lose their qualified immunity when they violate somebody's rights. Our representatives, our elected representatives, cannot lose their qualified immunity. Okay. They will never be able to be directly sued. And that's one of the things that I'd like to actually see happen, is where we can hold any of these representatives that violate the Constitution and knowingly do so, definitely when they knowingly do so, held accountable, at least financially, if not through other means. What I'd honestly like to see happen at the federal level is when certain states decide to vote for an unconstitutional law, other states sue that state in a class action lawsuit against the state. I think that could go a long way in the enforcement mechanism of enforcing the Constitution and upholding the Constitution.
Well, I want to throw in something. A lot of people don't. I want to go back to New York. 89,000 people registered handguns in New York State alone. I want to address something that I think gets missed, because it is important to have those lawsuits. It is important to try and change the laws in each state. But I think it's also important for people who are hearing this for the first time, some of the information. Like, I didn't know about the 89,000 handgun permits in New York State. People don't understand what's going on when it comes to the Second Amendment and how safe it is and why this is important. I had looked this up once before. I did a video on it. Let me ask you guys, do you know how many people can own or registered to own a machine gun in the United States right now? Actually, the data I can tell you as of February 2018.
If I'm not mistaken, I think there were 47,000 registered machine guns, or somewhere in and around that number.
No. But that's...
I was going to say, I think it's higher.
It is higher, but you're looking at a on as an individual state, yes. As the nation, higher.
Now, what's your number?
Okay, so this is something that a lot of people don't realize. The number happens to be 638,260 as of February 2018, and I'm very sure that I did a speech at Rutgers University, and the number was, and that was a year ago, and I believe it was 732,000. But at the moment, I've just pulled it. I'm at the ATF site from the United States government. The first data I pulled up while we were speaking, showing that number in New York State, 12,779 people are authorized to be able to have a machine gun, and do have machine guns at this moment. That means that approximately 1 out of 6 people who have a license, a permit in New York State, have a machine gun as well. Which is interesting, because remember, we're told these things are so deadly, they are so dangerous, you can't have it. Remember Biden coming out, you can't have a cannon, you can't have a machine gun, it's too deadly. 12,000 people in New York State own machine guns right this second. There are almost 700,000, let's round it up, 700,000 people in the United States that own machine guns right now. Not only is he wrong, but it's that safe. So this is why we can say, well, it's okay to own firearms across state lines, across the nation, because it's not going to mean instantly Wild West and everyone dies.
Well, that's why you just have to ask the question, how many crimes have been committed in the United States since the 1930s with a legally owned and registered machine gun? Because they're all NFA. You have to register them. You have to. How many crimes have been committed with one of those guns?
4.
0.
No, 4.
Zero.
Since the NFA, there have been exactly 4. 2 of them by police officers, which were absolved because it was in the commission of their work, and 2 others. One was most recently, actually the only one was in California, which was captured on TV with the guys head to toe in complete body armor. They were in those walking tin can suits.
Oh, you're talking about the LA shootout?
That was the LA shootout, and those were
Those
modified.
but those were not legally registered machine guns.
No, but I was
That's
just
what I'm talking about, the legally registered ones. The guns that you see being used in the commission of crimes that are machine guns, all of them have been illegal or illegally modified or came across a foreign border. None of them are good. None of them were guns that were registered with the NFA. That was the point, is that out of the 750,000 registered machine guns in the United States, not a single one of them has been used to commit a crime.
Sure.
Here's something interesting.
Now, hold on. Now, William Schmitz here comments. He says that's because they make it a pain in the ass to get your handgun permit. William, if you're still watching, you there, let us know what state you're in. We can maybe help direct you to the right course to make it easier. But this in line goes back to what I was saying. Yes, it's very difficult to get a pistol permit, but imagine if the people went and did it. Imagine if the people went and did it. Now, instead of you having your politicians like in New York saying, well, we can still trample all over the Second Amendment when we want to because there's only 88,000 permits issued in a state of 20 million people. Look at a state that's worse. Look at New Jersey. New Jersey.
Williams and Long Island.
1,200 people. 1,200 people in the state of New Jersey have concealed carry permits.
8,404 own machine guns.
Well, if that's how, I don't know how many was in New York State and New Jersey. Owning a machine gun in those states is illegal.
No, you can own it in New Jersey. There's 8,404 people licensed and owning machine guns as of 2018.
We might want to look into seeing those numbers a little bit differently because I wonder how many of those numbers are coming back to people who have the paperwork filled out and the necessary permits from the ATF in order to manufacture such firearms, because they're considered the owners until transferred. Because in New York, you cannot be a private resident and own a machine gun. You can't own a suppressor in New York State. You can't even own a handgun or rifle that has a threaded barrel in New York State without it having been pinned or welded or permanently affixed in some capacity. So I know there are firearm manufacturers in these states that produce full automatic weapons or select fire weapons, but they're only to be shipped out of state. They're never going to be owned in New York State.
Well, these people may be grandfathered. They may have been in.
There's no grandfathering, not when it comes to fully automatic firearms, not in New York. There's not that. Now let's look at a state that respects its Second Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at Florida. Yeah, how many pistol permits are issued in Florida?
More. Double New York, triple?
2,143,000.
Wow.
2 million people in Florida have their concealed carry permits. How many of those people do you think are out there breaking the law? And it goes back to the adage where somebody had made a comment to me about they didn't feel safe in my company because I carry a firearm. And I asked them, I said, do you carry a firearm? And they said, no. I said, well, then think about it this way. I've gone through several background checks. I've had my fingerprints taken. I've had my photograph taken. I've had city, state, and federal municipalities all verify the fact that I have not even so much as a parking ticket on my record. That much you know about me because I have a permit that says I'm allowed to carry this firearm. You don't have such a permit. That means I know less about you than you know about me. I am in more danger in your presence than you are in mine.
Exactly.
True.
And I see we have our good buddy Jeremy has signed in. Jeremy was getting his office all situated while he was while we hear bullshitting.
Office, and I got a new dog today, and my old dogs are losing their minds.
A new dog?
Yeah, I got a
What
Great
caliber is it?
Dane. He's 4 months old.
What kind?
Puppy.
Great Dane,
You kidding
big
me?
floppy bastard.
Oh boy.
Marmaduke.
Yeah,
Well, where is he? Let's get him on camera.
he's out on a walk with my older daughter right now.
All right. Well,
You
when
know,
they come back in,
we're trying to tire him out a little bit so he can get used to being around my other dogs. And he's just so big and clumsy. They're having a hard time dealing with him.
it's a great thing. They don't get tired until they're about 4 years old.
and they don't get out of the clumsiness.
Oh,
Yeah.
what's the big guy's name?
Otis.
Otis.
Yeah.
Good name.
Well, congratulations on the newest family member, Jeremy. We're proud of
Thank
you.
you.
So going back to our discussion, okay, you do not have to have a permit to own a cannon.
No, you don't.
Also, very
That's
true.
all we get cannons.
And yet another thing that Biden has no clue, and neither does his speechwriters, who really are the ones that are saying everything for him. No idea. They have these movie presumptions in their head about what the Second Amendment is, what it is to be a gun owner. They have these ideas. They're always so miserably wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It drives me nuts.
Yeah. Well, that goes to show really just how much they are into talking points versus real facts and real information. Okay. And it also goes to show that they really aren't interested in our safety as much as they are in our control.
No, absolutely. That brings up the second thing that was pissing me off. Washington State, Jay Inslee, the governor of Washington State, decided to follow New York State on the New York Safe Act, which I completely despise. And you can't own a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds. Who are they protecting? The criminals. That's who they're protecting, because this is stupid. And there's a video that was done, I believe, by Indiana State Police showing a woman who has never owned she had been trained, I think, a month. She's had a handgun for about a month. And they went through speed trials with her and a expert marksman doing time trials at about 25 and 50 yards. Reload, speed fire, multiple firearms. And in every single case, this woman, who was basically a novice with firearms, was within about, I think she averaged 3.5 seconds longer than the expert in terms of being able to fire, to reload, to switch firearms. It's a complete mockery. This whole thing, they don't like to show this video. It is available on YouTube. I've featured it on my channel, a couple of videos I've done a few times. They won't show this to people because they want you to think that somehow limiting legal, again, 99.994% of legal gun owners, by restricting their ability to defend themselves, that's somehow going to transfer to this criminal and making you safer because you're going to have this miracle moment to protect yourself. That does not exist. It is the biggest lie. It is absolutely false. And it has never made anyone safer, not in New York, not in any state that has followed this. And yet they're still doing this with this lie that now you're going to be safe. Complete crap. It is an absolute lie.
Well, if you sit and you look at it, who were the first two people to show up at a crime scene?
The criminal and
the victim.
Criminal and the victim.
Yeah.
Why is the third person to show up at the crime scene, which is going to be the police, going to be, or ambulance or whomever? But if, say, it's the police, why is it that the police officer, the person who's usually going to show up after the crime has already been committed, is the only one going to show up with a higher capacity magazine than 10? Wouldn't it stand to reason that the person who's the victim of the crime would be the person most likely in need of multiple means of defending themselves, means more bullets, more magazines. Why would you want to actively take away the ability of the potential victim from defending themselves? I don't understand it. I cannot it. Well, it's not even a matter of trying to understand it, because you cannot understand insanity. The only thing you can do is try to understand where it's coming from.
Well, I want people.
You know, none of their laws work. So what is it a matter of? It's just a matter of limiting your freedom. And there's not a single law or rule or regulation that's proposed by the people who are predominantly on the left side of the aisle that's designed to expand your freedoms. Every rule that they come out with is a means of limiting your freedoms. And it's not just a matter of guns, it's a matter of everything.
Well, true, but I want people who are watching this, and if you're going to have a conversation with someone who's like, guns are evil, or we have to get rid of them now, make everyone safe, I want you to remember and think of every single time you hear someone talking about guns, imagine that the victim is a 5'2", 115-pound woman, your mom. Okay, so your mom, she's 50. Let's say every time you want to have this conversation about who is being protected, who is the victim, we're talking about a 50-year-old, 5'2", 115-pound woman.
My mom would love to be 115 pounds.
Well, I'm slimming her down. But I think when we think of it that way, though, because I think most people, when you're thinking victims of the crime, most of the time people are going to think of, because of movies, we're going to think of some guy 6 foot 220 who's in shape, and he's the victim.
And knows all kinds of martial arts.
Yeah, because because we have this mental image.
Jack Reacher.
No, if you're talking about someone 5'4", that's Tom Cruise. No, he's 5'6", 5'8". But anyway, but we have this mental image created by the movies. Well, if there's a gunfight, if there's someone being shot at, it's like an OK Corral kind of scenario, and we've got two huge cowboys, two Schwarzeneggers going off with machine guns at each other. No, that's not real. The reality is more likely, and the more realistic image is that 50-year-old, 5'2", 115-pound woman going up against some, in general, 19-year-old, probably 6 foot, 175-pound gangbanger.
Yep.
That's your matchup. That's the reality of what's going on there. And we're telling that woman, oh, don't worry, you'll be okay. Just dodge the bullets until someone comes to save you. And I think when we think of it that way, when we suddenly say, don't worry, he's going to reload and you'll have approximately 4 seconds to figure out a way to save your life. Don't worry, you can do it. And the police will be there somewhere around 8 minutes after the start of the crime. You can manage.
Yeah, because we limited them to only 10, being able to have 10 rounds in their firearm. So, of course, they're going to abide by that law.
Yeah.
So after that 10th shot, you rush them.
Yeah, for 4 seconds, and you're on 115-pound woman. So, yeah, the law of physics is not necessarily your friend at that moment, even if you could reach him. When we think of it that way, I think people suddenly have a very different mental image of what it is when we're talking about the Second Amendment and people protecting themselves. And then you have to get angry, and you can understand why I get angry at the disgraced former governor Andrew Cuomo, Jay Inslee, Governor Newsom, these maniacs who want Americans to die.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the only way I see it, is they want Americans to die because of their political power.
Well, an unarmed victim is worth more than an armed victim.
Their politics are based on victimhood. Okay, so they need to create more victims. What's one way to create more victims? Take firearms away from the law-abiding citizens.
True. That would make a lot more victims.
Okay. And they figure the more victims they have, more votes they're going to get. Because they're always on the side of the victim.
Yeah, and it just, they're never on the side of the victim.
Well,
They're
that's it. That's what they don't, that's what people don't comprehend, is they're not on the side of the victim. They're actually against the victim. Okay. And they work to create more victims. Okay. If you look at most of the policy and things that are coming out right now,
I distracted.
He lost his track.
That are coming out right now. It is based on victimhood.
Yeah.
If you look at a lot of the stuff on LGBTQA plus blah 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 alphabet soup stuff that's going on, it is based upon victimhood. Okay, and it is designed literally to create more victimhood.
I love how Jeremy stepped away from the camera, hit mute on his microphone, got back onto the camera, unmuted it, and then opened up his beverage. Thanks, buddy. Thanks for sharing a cold one with us.
You know, how else can you be jealous and thirsty?
Now, not to stray too far off course, but I'm glad you brought up the LGBTQ R2D2 C3PO, whatever all of that is. Did you guys catch the testimony this week of Judge Jackson?
Oh my God, yes.
All right. Did you see when Marsha Blackburn asked her if you could give me the definition of a woman?
You mean, yeah, the biologist line. I know.
All right. Now,
pitiful.
All right. I realized something earlier today, and I'm really shocked, stunned, and amazed that all of these congressional leaders up on Capitol Hill, these people who get paid $200,000 a year plus, who are supposed to be so much smarter than me, didn't pick up on that question and see the answer for what it was. Now, I did a little Facebook Live thing on my private page earlier today while I was trying to get my thoughts cleared up. I want you to think about this. Think about this. Can you define a woman?
Yes.
And she said, I can't. I'm not a biologist.
Yeah.
There's an admission there that nobody saw, that nobody picked up on. I'm not a biologist. The follow-up question, why would it require a biologist to give the definition of what a woman is? Because as far as I can tell, many people in this country seem to be of the thought that don't exist and that men don't exist. And that is the reason why she answered that question in the way that she did. I'm not a biologist, because she did not want to give an actual answer to the question, what is a woman? Because if she were to say, well, it's these chromosomes, or it's these body parts, or it's this, or it's that, congressional testimony, that would have been recorded. That's almost going to be as good as law itself. Right. Because that testimony is going to be brought up 1,000 times over whenever somebody brings up one of these cases about who identifies who under some whatever. So she said in her pretty much saying, I am not going to answer that question because I'm not a biologist, thinking that's her way out. What she did was step in a bear trap. because what she admitted is that the only person qualified to make the determination of what constitutes a woman or what constitutes a man is based on biology,
Mm-hmm.
not based on psychology or how somebody believes,
Or
what
feels.
they identify with, or how they feel. She admitted that the only person qualified to draw the distinction between male and female is a biologist. She
Therefore,
pretty much, by refusing to answer that question because she
And
didn't want to get caught in the gotcha moment, she got herself. The number one draft pick for the Supreme Court of Joe Biden just came out and said being a man or a woman is based on science, not based on how you feel. It's not based
miracle.
on what you think. She said you need to be a biologist to be able to determine what sexuality is, what sex is, what gender is. They try to parse these arguments so well so that they don't get caught into that gotcha moment that they dropped it and they completely blindsided themselves. Now, if somebody doesn't continue with this line of questioning, at some point when they resume these hearings, put her back in that chair
no,
and
today,
say, what do you mean that you have to be a biologist to determine male or female? What do you mean that you have to be a biologist? Get their number one draft pick to have to admit, because now she can't say, well, it's a matter of how you feel. 3 days ago, you weren't qualified to answer the question, but now you think you were. That testimony completely destroys everything that they've been fighting for, down to us, down to taxpayer-funded sex changes and reassignment surgery and all of this the stuff that they're pulling on the kids in school.
well,
That testimony destroyed all of it, and now we need somebody in Washington to stand up, grab that bull by the horns, and capitalize on that moment.
actually, they did.
They're not going to.
No, Ted Cruz did. Ted Cruz did bring it back up, and KBJ, I hate her first name. It's hard to pronounce properly. Ketanji, I think I'm getting it wrong. She said, no, I know I'm a woman, and I know my mother's a woman, and she didn't explain how she knows that, because Ted Cruz is like, how could you not know? And her answer was, no, I know, but she didn't explain how she knew, which leaves it again still in the realm of it's biological, it's scientific, and it's not your thought, it's a fact. How does she know? Because it's science, and that's the fact. It's intrinsic, it's basic, and they're running away from it because their base wants it to be that way. But she's fundamentally flawed.
Right.
And I
now,
think Cruz did a good job.
This is where, because this judge is so radical, that now they've got to be able to bring it back up and say, listen, the next time we have any of these arguments come up before the court, she's going to have to recuse herself. That vote that you think you're going to get from her to, in the affirmative for whatever one of these pet causes that you think you want to have, she's got to recuse herself, because she can't now come up with a judgment that's an opposite of what her testimony was. She's going to have to recuse herself. And that's when they're going to have to tell Joe Biden, listen, Joe, you might want to have to go with your number 2 draft pick, because your number 1 draft pick just, pretty much showed everybody the playbook.
No, I guarantee you she's going to get in, because she's too vital to the transformation of America that Obama promised and started, that Biden is continuing. This road literally to hell and communism. Because
you see also this week how they're trying to impeach Thomas.
Oh, well, they try to impeach him every day. What now? Because he was sick this week?
No, because his wife
Oh,
was
that,
at
yes.
the January 6th rally.
Text. She had a text.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh my God, this was a conspiracy. This is so ridiculous. They've got nothing. They know it."
So they want to get Thomas impeached. Okay. And I mean, I know it's just a bunch of political stage, political theater, but it's interesting that what they're literally trying to do. Okay. First off, it wasn't just Thomas. Okay, it was his wife. And his wife is free to do as she wishes. Okay.
Yeah.
And she's free to communicate with whoever she wants to. Okay. Unless they actually have a text of her saying, storm the Capitol building, she has done nothing wrong.
Well, even if she did, that has nothing to do with him.
Exactly.
As every feminist should say, because women's rights, women's power, she's her own person. She's not there for her husband. Therefore, it doesn't matter what she says. He didn't say it. Unless there's a text that says, Clarence said X. Unless they've got that, and even then it's conjecture. But unless it says exactly that, it stops with her, and she's free to say whatever she wants. It's got nothing to do with him. This is a fishing expedition, and the feminists aren't going to stand up for this woman because it's in their advantage, which they do often.
It's got to fit the agenda.
Yeah. I tell you, I'm so upset with all of this. And you would think feminists would want women armed. You would think feminists, third wave feminists, would want women, fifth wave feminism, would want women to be as empowered as possible. And yet, the moment it's like being a black conservative, I can tell you for a fact, they demand you're black, you're Hispanic, you must follow a path we have chosen for you. This is the approved everything for you. You can't step out of line. You can't get off the plantation. You've got to do what we say because you're free and you can do anything you want as long as it's approved.
And as long as it's according to our agenda.
Yeah. As long as you're on the agenda, you're in their approved path. You're free to do anything you want as long as it's right between the lines and you do exactly what we say. And I can't understand, as much as I get these people from, BLM, Plot, Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, Citizen Action, the far left, and they come up and they constantly say, I can't understand why you as a black man would do that. I'm like, I can't understand why you as an American would tell me that I can't.
Well, there's nothing more that the anti-racists hate more than a black conservative.
Well, even my friend, you guys may have heard of Maj Toure.
Oh yeah, we know.
Yeah, and I know Maj, and I've done interviews with Maj down at CPAC a few times. He's not a Republican. I don't think Maj would even describe himself as a conservative. He's a libertarian, and they hate him as much as they hate me. Probably him a little bit more because he's more national, but they hate him too because why? He wants to make sure blacks in inner cities are able to go out and get to be able to be armed and to take part of the Second Amendment, which is their fundamental right, because they're able to protect themselves. And they hate him for that too, because that's not the reservation. No, we got to get rid of the guns. And he's like, no, I want to arm people.
Well, I think. Sorry, go ahead.
It's the same with Colin Noir and several of the others that want to build responsible gun ownership in black communities.
Yeah. Well, I feel like a lot of it is they need the victims to push their agenda. And if you arm women and have less cases where they're attacked, or in any case, they need the victims so they can say, oh no, we'll be your safe space, come to us. And And if they don't have those victims, they don't have anybody to run to them. It's just like why they love the idea of no voter ID and letting anybody vote, including unregistered aliens.
Yeah.
Well,
They need
that's why
those.
they create the problem on one hand, so they could turn around and offer you the solution with the other.
Well,
And
exactly.
and then when they don't
Yeah,
come
a
up with a
solution that
solution,
creates more victims.
they blame the people who didn't create the problem and say, well, we need to be reelected and we need more money so we can get this, get the solution for you.
We
Get
need
the
to
solution.
fix this problem that we created.
I mean, think about it this way: if you have a leak in your plumbing and you call the plumber comes over, fixes the leak. You pay the plumber and he leaves. You call the plumber the next day when you ain't got a leak?
No.
No. So if a politician actually fixed the problem that they created, would you need the politician the following day?
Nope.
The only reason they create the problems is so that they can justify their own usefulness. Because if they just shut the hell up and stop making all of these problems, we could pretty much do away with most of them.
Okay.
We wouldn't need them.
Let me ask you a question, Frank. You have concealed. You've already stated that you're able to carry. Did you need to show any ID to get that permit?
Which time?
Okay.
Because every time that I've gotten one, I have to go and go through the whole process again.
Okay, but
As Jimmy Vanderhyde says, you can't sink the ship and then brag about all the lifeboats you filled. Damn right.
you're right, Jim. You're right. So the reason why I asked that, they don't want anyone to have ID to vote, but they ask every single one of us to own a firearm. We have to have multiple forms of ID. We have to have multiple witnesses to stand up for us, and they have to have ID to prove who they are. We need tons of documentation, but we don't need it to vote. A vote that would help decide whether or not we actually have to, like in the case of Washington, whether or not we can actually have a magazine that has more than 10 rounds or to be able to have a firearm. We need tons of ID to be able to own these firearms, but we need no ID to go out and vote to elect these people or to pass this legislation. Something doesn't make sense in that if you're trying to be just and if you're trying to follow the Constitution.
Well, that alone, but an ID to vote, I have to provide an ID and fill out a form every time I go shooting in Utah.
No, that's a bit crazy too. That's over the top. Just to shoot? You mean like at the range?
Yeah, we go to the range. They ask for an ID and they have you fill out a form. Of course, the form is like no, I'm not suicidal. No, I'm not on drugs. No, I'm not a mentally insane person. It's a safety for them.
It's a range disclaimer.
It is. But
and then they take your ID from you and they put it up on a lane marker on the board. So that
we have some ranges. Well, we have some ranges in Utah where they pull ID from everybody, though, not just one person.
Oh no, we have that here. We have that here. When you go out on that range, you go out, you pick your lane. They put your ID on the lane marker for where you are, and it's mostly if God forbid you do decide to, aerate yourself. They know who it was. If God forbid there's an accident, I would ask you guys to one day look up a video of firing range flashover. Then you'll understand why you need to have IDs.
Just that lady that shot the 500 Magnum or whatever.
Well, if you've ever seen a range that's not necessarily, there's a lot of unspent powder on a range. And if you don't have it ventilated properly, cleaned properly, it's why a lot of ranges don't let you run steel case ammunition. One errant spark in the wrong place, flash over. You get this big burst of flame comes out of it. Everything ignites. So there's a reason your ID's up on that wall, and it's mostly so they can identify you if necessary.
Fair enough.
But we shouldn't have to do that. And at the same time that these very same people are telling us We need ID for all of these things besides going to get a beer, besides driving a car, besides everything you do in your regular everyday life. But for the most important thing that we could do as a people, elect our politicians who create the laws we're supposed to live by, assuming that they're actually following their oath of obligation in the Constitution, their oath of office, assuming that they are, then that's the most powerful thing that we can do. And they're saying, well, no, you don't have to do. Actually, they've even gone further than that. In New York State and San Francisco, you don't even need to be a United States citizen to vote. That is a fact. 800,000 non-citizens in New York City will be voting in 2022. At the same time, the Democrats are looking at a landslide loss across the country because their policies are hurting everyday Americans, and suddenly a third of New York State's votes in the 2022 election are going to be decided by people who aren't citizens of the United States. Because you don't need an ID. It's okay. Just vote.
Well, believe me, if you all of a sudden had a tremendous shift in political favoritism from what comes from the southern hemisphere of this continent, and you're sort of saying that majority of the people coming across the border are generally conservative and would vote accordingly, you would see how quickly you would have Dick Durbin and the rest of them out there demanding voter ID and everything else. It's just that they play to the demographic, they play to the fear, they play for the freebie, and they get what they want, and the only people who are there to back them up are the judges that they have put in positions of authority to make those, that say that it's legal, because they are of the same ideological bent. They're all trying to shape the country into the same exact mold, and the only thing that prevents them from being successful are the 3% of Americans who actually give a damn about their Constitution anymore. Because I'll be honest with you, I honestly don't think a lot of people care anymore about what their rights are. Otherwise, they would be better educated about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have more people sit there and study what's contained in their box of morning cereal than know their rights about what happens if they get pulled over at a traffic stop.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've been doing some thinking on a lot of this. Okay. And honestly, this is proven out, and it's basically proven out even back at the time of the revolution. People want government to essentially tell everybody else what to do. Okay. They don't want you to they don't want government to tell them what to do, but they want government to tell everybody else what to do. As long as it's within the bounds of what they believe.
Right. That's where the saying "there should be a law" came from.
Yeah. I love
Okay, and honestly, they don't realize that that's literally a two-edged sword. Whenever you have government get involved in anything, it doesn't matter what it is, you are giving government more permission to get involved in more things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the whole premise behind a limited government, was to keep them away from taking our rights or preventing us from exercising those rights.
I don't know. It's so frustrating sometimes. And, and I hear from people all the time when I'm out at the colleges, when I'm doing speeches, when I'm on my show every week, I hear people say, I'm so frustrated. People don't get it. They think I don't understand. We want our they want to take power from us, and they assume that we are too dumb to understand what's going on. We think that we just don't understand what they're talking about. Whether it's like we're too dumb to understand that KBJ is dodging the question and saying, I'm not a biologist. They think we're too dumb to understand what a woman is. They think we're too dumb to understand that they're protecting criminals and harming citizens with these laws, that at every step they're harming, not helping, and they're doing it for political gain. And the thing that really pisses me off about that at the end of the day is in all of these cases, they're right, because it's 80, there is an 88% chance that once you are in Congress, you will be reelected year after year as they do these things to harm people. So I'm
Well,
not
that actually brings up a very good issue. Okay, is most incumbents are reelected year after year after year, or election cycle after election cycle after election cycle. And it's been actually studied and proven that the larger the constituency, the more likely the incumbent is going to be reelected.
Yeah.
Okay, and honestly, what we really need is we need to start having more seats in Congress.
Mm-hmm. Term limits too. I think term limits. No one should be. I don't care what office you're in. Nobody should be able to be in that office more than 6 years. Period.
Well, remember,
That's a big
most of
thing for
them
me.
only care about getting reelected just till they can qualify for their lifetime pensions. And I believe in the House, that's 3 terms. Once you've passed 3 terms, you get
Yes,
your lifetime pension in the House, and it's
it is.
2 terms in the Senate.
Yes, that's
So
correct.
as long as you serve 12 years in the Senate, you're getting that $168,000 a year every year for the rest of your life. And the same thing applies with the House, except I think the House it's 6 years, and I think it's 6 years, and it's a reduction. I think that you get the full benefit after the same 12, but that, and also remember too, even if they lose their election, they still have that sizable war chest that they build up over the years of people donating money to them. That they just put in the PAC that's named after themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's the Harry Reid Political Action Committee, guy's dead 6 months. He's still probably got 20 million sitting in that PAC over there. And they can use that money for anything that they want, so long as they can show that it had some sort of political tie-in.
That and all the book deals that they get, that the books, most of their books won't sell a copy, but they still get 6-figure, 7-figure, 8-figure book deals.
Well, that's because they wind up getting, they'll take the publisher's name and put it in some sort of, the publisher winds up getting monies back from the federal government for some reason or another. Because they published something that was a public service announcement that they published, so they'll wind up getting some sort of grant money from one bill or another that the writer of that book that won't sell, put that little piece of pork in that piece of legislation. There's so much, every damn thing is corrupt. Every single part of it is corrupt. And it's all got to get taken apart, dismantled piece by piece, and started over.
Well, that's it. Okay. And we need, one of the first things we need to do is we need to expand the number of seats in the House of Representatives.
Yes.
Okay. I've been doing some research into this and so forth. In Delaware, which has a single seat in the House of Representatives, the representative from the state of Delaware represents over 990,000 people, almost 1 million people in that seat. Okay. Yet there's a couple other states that have 550,000 people that they represent. Okay. That in and of itself is a huge discrepancy. between the number of people that are represented by a single seat. Then you have the fact that how can anybody adequately represent even 550,000 people? I mean, really, how can you adequately represent so many people?
Mm-hmm.
No, I agree. You can't get to know them, and I know for a fact it's over 720,000 people per district in New York State. I've been out on the campaign trail for Congress. I've both as a candidate and to track other candidates. They don't know the overwhelming number of people, and I can tell you for a fact, it is a fact. There was a study that was done, a poll that was done just in 2020. Tried to run for Congress in 2014. I have name recognition with 5% in 8 counties of New York State. I ran for Congress in 2014. Those people don't even know if most of the people in that study, they've heard my name. They don't even know if I'm a politician or not. There's a bunch of people that contact me every week when I do the show, and they're like, well, you're a politician. I'm like, I've never been elected to an office in my life. People
Right.
have no idea who their politicians are. There are
No,
a
they don't.
lot of people who think I am an elected politician because I know the laws. I'm like, and I know almost all the politicians in central and southern New York.
Shit, the
And
elected
most of them have
politicians
been,
don't know the laws.
yeah. People don't know the laws. They don't know their politicians. And it's insane. And by the way, for people who are wondering if Frank was just making up about the PACs and the funds that politicians walk away with, you can look this up for yourself. Disgraced former governor Andrew Cuomo, who left because of 11 individual assaults on women, he walked away with $18.5 million that he still has, that he is using to influence New York State politics. And the big problem there is because he's no longer in office, no one is watching where that money is going. He can now wield it without any oversight, which is terrifying. So,
And here's a really bad thing is even though he resigned in disgrace,
Mhm.
he is actually talking about running for governor again.
yeah, which is insane.
Okay. And I honestly don't get how he could even be considered to be governor again. Okay. But he's got enough support that he actually thinks he has a legitimate shot of being elected to governor again.
He does. He does have a
I know he
legitimate
does.
shot. And it's the argument, what I've heard from his supporters is that, well, he was railroaded by Republicans, and it's their fault. They made up the extremity of the stories, and he really wasn't that bad a guy. That's one of the arguments. The other one is, well, he did more good for New York State, so we'll forgive him for the sexual assaults. We'll forgive him for killing 16,000 New York State residents in nursing homes. We'll forgive him for the corruption of a cover-up. That's all forgivable because he's such a great guy. That's the reasoning why he thinks he can run and possibly win.
Mm-hmm.
We are in such a bad
Insanity.
situation in this country.
Yeah.
It drives me
We
nuts.
are. And I mean, every year we see more and more corruption. We see more and more of our elected and candidates being literally proven to have broken the law,
Mm-hmm.
and they get away with it. with nothing, absolutely zero consequences.
Yeah, and they're beloved for it. They are beloved for it.
Yep.
Charles Rangel, beloved. $2 million
Charles Rangel.
forgery with the IRS, and
Mhm.
beloved. I couldn't get away with, if I make a mistake on my IRS form, if you do it on your IRS taxes and you make a mistake of $200, they're going crazy. They just hired 86,000 IRS agents to look at every single transaction we make, your credit card, your PayPal, your bank account. That's all open to the government now, and they are checking that actively. Meanwhile, members of Congress can get away with writing hundreds of thousands of dollars of bad checks, and it's perfectly fine.
I didn't know I was writing a bad check. I didn't know I had to pay taxes. Charlie Rangel, his voice sits in my head like a tumor. I cannot stand that person. My God, I've never seen that. He had to be about the most corrupt politician that New York has seen. God, thank God he was never elected to higher office, because if he was, there would have been no level of depravity that man would have sunk to when it comes to corruption.
I agree.
He is what Al Sharpton would have been had Al Sharpton actually held political office.
Yes. Politically, they're twins. Very, very much so. But we've seen how that's been degrading our country. It's one of the reasons why we're such a laughingstock. And I have to tell you, I'm terrified when I see China talking about how they are beefing up their military and they're increasing their navy. We have Russia beefing up in their ads their military, and they're building up their army. We have Iran promising to kill us. They are building an ICBM, and they're getting sanctions already. Sanctions have been lifted, and there are more coming. We have North Korea has an ICBM that can strike the United States. They just fired it off this week.
Yeah,
and reach the United States, and nobody's talking about in the news, and our politicians are like, don't worry, they're going to be our friends.
Well, that ICBM that North Korea just launched can reach not just the United States, can reach anywhere in the United States.
Yeah, 13,000 miles it can go. It's anywhere in the U.S. they can hit. Yeah.
Doesn't it give you the warm and fuzzy?
So it's not like they can just reach Hawaii, California, or Alaska. No, they can reach Washington, D.C.
But hey, listen, Kamala's out there talking about the significance of time.
No, please stop letting her talk to anyone.
No, let her keep talking.
No, she makes everything worse. That woman, look at every.
I know, that's what's so great about her. That's what's so great. Listen, dude, if we are going to go down in a ball of flame, I at least want to have some comedic relief. That woman is as absurd as you could possibly get. Yeah. Somebody said she is everything that the left said that Sarah Palin would be.
Yeah, and worse. Yeah,
and then worse. I mean, this is someone who makes Dan Quayle look like a Rhodes Scholar.
Genius.
Do you know that she has a worse rating than Dan Quayle?
It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, recent polling, she actually polled under Dan Quayle at his worst moment, which is when he couldn't spell potato.
That's pretty rough.
This is why I say she's a complete screw up. She's horrible.
Well, and that's with just a limited amount of exposure that she actually has had. Because the media, let's face it, the media does everything they can to put the cameras on with a delay from a very favorable angle, with their fingers crossed, saying, God, I hope she doesn't say something stupid again today.
Mm-hmm. Well, they do the same thing with Joe Biden. But here recently, all of a sudden, the Hunter Biden laptop is back in the news.
And again, it's verified and everything else. And
this time it's verified by the New York Times.
Yeah, but the major three still won't admit to it. Brian Setzer still won't acknowledge that that it even exists. And you want to know? Look, you got a media that took a picture of Joe Biden getting aboard Marine One outside of the White House, walking across the lawn. They have a picture of him getting on the Marine One helicopter, and in the background, the grass is beautifully green. The trees are full of leaves. The leaves at the White House right now are bare, and the lawn is brown.
Mhm.
Where did this photo come from? They photoshopped a picture of him getting on to make it look more regal and more presidential instead of just giving us the hey, it's still not really spring yet and cold out and crappy and the trees are still bare. Just let us see a real photograph of it. No, the media had a freaking Photoshop a picture of him getting on a fucking helicopter.
Yeah,
You expected to get any truth out of them? They can't even put a photograph up without photoshopping it.
look, they won't admit that he abandoned. This is from the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee. He knew that there were 9,000. If you listen to the math, by the way, this is confirmed by the Biden administration in their speech. 9,000 Americans were abandoned in Afghanistan. That's what the finding of the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee found. It matches what we were told in June of 2021. And then you subtract the number they told us at first, 15,000 Americans, to how many Americans actually got out of Afghanistan. They said there were 6,000 on August 31st. The difference was 9,000. That number magically just disappeared from all media coverage. Since then, we have gotten at least 6 different numbers from the United States government, the Biden-Harris administration, that has been up and down. We went from 100 to 85 to 249 to 6 to 100 to 85 is the last number that I know. And every contact I have in Congress, which are Republicans and Democrats, and every member of government that I have, which includes libertarians, conservatives, and progressives, not one person can even guess at how many Americans still remain in Afghanistan to this day, which means that Biden is consistently lying to our faces, and we're supposed to trust anything that administration says or the media that just lets it go. It's like, oh, well, don't worry, Afghanistan, forget about it. How many people? I don't know. Don't worry, it's not important.
Well, don't ask them for numbers on, for any numbers because they're not statisticians.
Yeah,
Gentlemen, I've got to go.
I heard the puppy.
Great chatting again tonight, and look forward to the next one. I have to sign off early tonight, though.
Yeah,
All right.
no worries, Jeremy. Go do what you got to do. We'll
Have a
see
good
you
night,
next
everybody.
week. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Okay, see ya.
Have a good night.
So I can follow. I mean, I follow all of this stuff, but it just drives me nuts. And every one of these things, when I think about it, it makes me more sure that we should have an active pursuit of the Second Amendment. We should be more actively going out there and trying to protect ourselves. And in fact, we are seeing 5 million last year, 5 million new gun owners. I think 40% of them were Black women. We need more people to own firearms. I think that's better for us. And by the way, in case anyone's looking at the screen, they're wondering, why does it say Inquisitor Voss, you shall not falter? Anyone who plays Warhammer 40K, it's a reference to that game system. There's a whole lore behind it. And the United States shall not falter. You shall not falter if we stand by our Constitution and if we stand by our Second Amendment. And therefore, that allows us to stand by every other amendment and every other regulation in this nation.
Well, I think it's kind of interesting that we're not hearing a lot more anti-gun rhetoric coming from the left right now. But it also corresponds with the fact that how is Ukraine actually defending themselves? because they gave people guns.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, they can't rectify the two positions at the same time. So
Well,
they
that's
can't.
it. That's it
And
exactly.
that's why they, like I said, they'll pick their battlefield. They'll wait for Ukraine to go one way or the other, whichever way it's going to go, and then they'll say, well, if the Ukrainians manage to fight off the Russian incursion and get back to them, they're going to say that it was a unified effort by the Ukrainian people, and Russia just capitulated. Or they'll put the onus on Russia as being, well, they just decided to be the bigger country and leave it alone. They won't say that the people, won their freedom because of the firearms. However, if Russia continues to roll through and goes all the way through and claims that country as their own, they're going to say, see, it doesn't matter how many guns the people have. You can't win a war with an overwhelming
Well,
enemy.
I actually honestly think one of the dialogues that's going to be is, well, see, those were government owned firearms that they gave to the people. So, see, the government protected them.
Yeah.
It wasn't the fact that
Really?
people owned firearms, it's the fact that the government gave them the firearms so that they could protect themselves.
That's ridiculous.
All I know is I saw the one poignant picture of this little girl, probably 10, 12, 13 years old. I don't know how old she is, sitting in a window frame of a burned out building, holding an AK-47, and she's got a lollipop. She's the cutest little thing. And I said to myself, this is what that country has been brought down to, is that 13 or 12-year-old girls are the ones out. And I said to myself, God, I'm not even going to ever claim to be smart enough to understand what's going on with the geopolitical scene over there, to know what's going on, who did what, and all the rest of this stuff. But I see a little kid like that, and I pray to God that God keeps us safe.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to see nothing happen to a little kid like that, and I would hate to have that kid grow up with the realization that she had to put somebody down to defend her country and defend herself or her family. That's the last thing a little kid needs on their mind as they go through the rest of their lives. We have too many grown men can't handle that, knowing what they've had to do in a time of war, and you have little kids out there doing it, and just trying to be free, and that toll is not going to be paid for 20 years or more to come. And it's horrible. It's horrible to see those images, and I just, but I don't. The one thing I don't understand is I've never heard, and I know a lot of people who are Ukrainian. Where is all this Ukrainian Nazi propaganda crap coming from?
Well, that's a reality. It's real. There is a movement, and has been for a couple decades, of neo-Nazis that are in the Ukraine. They do have some political power. That's a reality. And I've had people tell me, well, Mike, you can't support the Ukrainian people because of that. And I want to address that. I'm glad you brought it up. First, there is a bigger evil of Russia and what Russia is attempting to do. So there's a priority here. Do I agree with neo-Nazis? Not at all. I think they're disgusting, depraved individuals, and I denounce them entirely. But at the same time, you can only fight one battle at a time.
Well,
I can't fight them and fight Russia. I fight Russia first, then I'll deal with them.
Well, if your patient has a cold and a bullet wound, you treat the bullet wound before you worry about the cold.
Exactly. And so yes, they exist. Are they the biggest problem? No.
Well, that's part of the thing is I'm seeing these photographs all of a sudden. I've never seen these photographs in my history. I've never seen any of these photographs come to light. Now, all of a sudden, in the last week, I see a lot of people on the conservative side of the aisle posting these photographs saying, hey, these are what the Ukrainians are really like. And it's the same 3 photographs that I'm seeing posted all over the place. And I'm like, all right, well, that's all right. Now, you're doing exactly to the people of the Ukraine what the left-wing media did to that guy who drove his car through the rally at Charlottesville.
Yes.
You're picking out the one fucking lunatic out there and painting them all with the same brush. But
Yeah.
you're not looking at. I mean, the president of the country is a Jew.
Yeah, I know.
You have people in Ukraine that remember being slaughtered by Nazis in World War II. You know, I understand there's going to be people that are sympathetic with it. It's going to be the case with everything. We've got people in this country that are neo-Nazis. It doesn't mean the rest of us are.
Well,
I'm worried about the people. I'm worried about the people who, regardless of where they stand, the people are just the victims of whatever their government decides to institute. And it's not the people that decided to get invaded, and it's not the people that decided to do the invading. These are leaders. These are the people in these countries, the politicians that produce the situations that the people have to deal with. I'm not sympathetic with the Ukrainian government. I'm not sympathetic with the Russian government. I'm sympathetic with the 18-year-old Russian kid sitting in a tank who doesn't know why the hell he's going to war. I'm sympathetic with that 13-year-old girl sitting in a burned-out building, wondering why her grandparents are dead in the building and why she's got to shoot at the 18-year-old kid in the tank. That's who I'm concerned about. That's who I'm sympathetic for. These people didn't ask to be put in that situation. So before everybody in our country starts looking to condemn this one or condemn that one, say, listen, the people are not the ones who decided this.
No, people didn't.
Decided it. This is the fucking politicians who made these choices. All brought on because we had a jerk off in Washington who's so weak and feckless that he allowed this kind of stuff to happen.
And
we're finding out too, though, that the United States had a lot more involvement in Ukraine than was known.
Oh, you're talking about the biolabs.
Yep.
Yeah. 46 biolabs.
Yep.
That are so dangerous, we can't let anyone else get to them. Which
exactly
the government that I see, and as I mentioned, has been lying consistently to the American people. And now they're telling us, first they told us there were no labs. Then they told us, well, there's only a couple. There's only 6 of them. Now we know there's 46. We know that we've spent $200 million on them. They've been there since 2005. They really developed under the Obama administration. If they're willing to lie about so many aspects of this consistently, and now they're telling us they're completely safe, but we have to stop the Russians from getting them, I have to believe that there's something else there. Otherwise, those labs being.
It also came out that these biolabs weren't put in there by the National Institutes of Health or the CDC or any of those. These are DOD biolabs.
Yes.
Okay, so these are part of the Department of Defense.
All right, now if you want to expand upon that, think about this. Now, this is another one of the. All right, well, Frank's going to go off on that bridge that he has no idea where he's going, but remember this too. From the inception of the war on terror, you remember how he said that we can't do certain things to certain people because it's under the Geneva Convention and people in this country or anything. So what did we do to a lot of people? We sent them to black sites outside of the United States where certain things didn't apply anymore, and we could do whatever we wanted to do without impunity. And it didn't matter because it wasn't here. It wasn't
here. The Constitution didn't apply.
Didn't apply to it. So all of that shit could take place. Well, now you find out you got biolabs, which are black sites. Let's consider it the same way that they had the black sites that they put together for interrogating American citizens that they would transport overseas and interrogate them over there where the conventions wouldn't apply, the Constitution wouldn't apply. And that was run by the Department of Defense. And now you got this shit being run by the Department of Defense at these biolabs. And, oh, gee, look at that. It happens to be in a country that doesn't fall under NATO.
Kind of like the Wuhan lab research that was done in China because you cannot do it in the United States because of gain of research, gain of function, excuse me.
Do you think that maybe our fucking country has gone a little bit awry? That I think we're a little bit strayed away from what our founding fathers had envisioned.
Well, and not only that, okay.
These people, these bastards, they'll turn around and they'll tell you the founding fathers never had any idea that there would be machine guns. I'm pretty sure they never thought there'd be black fucking market laboratories in other countries where we're developing biological weapons and kicking off World War III because somebody doesn't want to, put it in a U.S. appropriations bill.
Well, first, they did know that they did envision machine guns because they had them, the pucker gun.
Gun.
You know that, I know that.
Right.
They didn't know about bioweapons they didn't even know germs were existing. So they had no idea, and they would never have authorized, and that's why it isn't authorized to be able to make these things. They are a Geneva Convention violation, which is why they don't do it in the United States, and why they say they're Ukrainian biolabs funded by the United States. Gee, are we trying to find every loophole to jump through? And if they want me to believe them, why should I believe an administration that has been documented as lying to us, and a media that is willing to lie to us for 2.5 years? New York Times, the Hunter laptop, you lied to us to change the outcome of events. I won't say the word, otherwise it gets banned. But they did this on purpose, and now they want us to believe. Nope, we're telling you everything you need to know. It's absolutely true. This is a perfectly safe biolab. I'm sorry, I have a problem. Agent Black, my buddy from across the pond, he's talking to us right now from over in merry old England, the United Kingdom. And so he's up 7 hours ahead of us. This is about 5 a.m. for him, so it's really great to see him.
Agent Black, good to have you with us today. Yes, you're right. It is about the money laundering and the child trafficking. I still want to know, we had photographs released last week of Hunter Biden's laptop where I see a girl who can't be any older than 9 years old, dressed in lingerie, fishnet stockings, makeup done up and everything. Where is this little girl?
Mm-hmm.
Where is she? Who is she? Who is the little child that Hunter Biden is laying on top of in the bed naked? Who is this child? Where is this child?
All I need to, all I ask for in that? Just verify her age. We don't need to know her name. The public does not need to know her name or know about her. We just need to verify, is she under 18? Period. Full stop. She is under 18. Hunter Biden is, by definition, a child predator, on top of any and everything else that he is, and therefore instantly must go to jail. Right. On top of everything else he's violated, instantly, that's it. Done.
Is this kid even alive?
Yeah. And
but be assured, it's only one image. So according to Judge Jackson, that's not irrelevant. It's not really something to be taken into account, and he should be given 3 months.
Well, according to Judge Jackson, whoever that little person is she can't even identify it as human because she's not a biologist.
Well, yes. Right.
And actually, was going to be my next point, is we've got a Supreme Court judicial nominee that has proven over and over and over and over again to be extremely soft on child pornography.
Yep.
Okay. And in many of her statements, even, has shown that child pornography really isn't that bad.
Not according to her.
Okay. I mean, come on.
She is disgusting. They asked her, to Tim Cotton. Tom Cotton asked her, do you think America would be safer if all the people who were out there committing murders were caught, tried, and prosecuted? And she wouldn't answer it. Do you think America would be better off if we captured, tried, and convicted all the people who were guilty of assault or all the people guilty of rape? or all the people guilty of burglaries or violence, whatever it was. She wouldn't admit under any circumstance that convicting guilty people is a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Because it would mean that, because the gotcha that they were going for was, it was about her stance on defunding the police and having less police. Because he prefaced the whole line of questioning with, "Do you believe we should have more police in the United States?" To which she responded, "Well, that's an administrative policy, not something that I deal with as a judge." No, it's an opinion. We're asking you your opinion. You think we would be safer if we had more or less police? Which would you be? She wouldn't answer the question because, again, the same reason she wouldn't say what a woman is because it's all part of that structure that they're putting together specifically to try and tear apart what is already existing. If she gives her honest opinion, it's going to preclude her from being able to sit on certain cases that come up in front of the court. She's going to have to recuse herself. That's why she wouldn't give these questions, give the answers to these questions.
And that's the whole thing is
around and say, I sympathize with the victims' families, but really, do you sympathize with the children, the victims of the child pornographer that you gave the 23% the recommended sentence to? I don't see that being very sympathetic.
You mean when she apologized in the courtroom to one of the child pornographers, and it was read back, the actual statement she made, Senator Ted Cruz read her actual in courtroom apology to the criminal that she was sentencing, that she was sorry to be sentencing that convicted child pornographer. I want to be very clear. Convicted. This was the sentencing for his crime of abusing a child and possession of that child pornography. And she apologized to that criminal. And for me, yes, I have there's three things that make her absolutely the worst choice you could possibly have. The reason why she was picked has nothing to do with her qualifications, because when she got the job 9 months ago on the appellate court, 3 of her decisions were overturned because she overreached her power. She did not have the judicial right to be able to make the decision she made, and they were overturned, which means she's not good at her job. And third is she's weak on these criminals. She literally is bending the law as much as she can in the benefit of criminals, and someone like that. And I'm terrified because at some point we're going to go from 6 justices that are more conservative, not entirely conservative, more conservative, and eventually we're going to get to a 5-4, 4-5 leaning towards liberals, and she is one of the examples of what we're going to get under every progressive administration going forward, and that terrifies me.
Well,
because what are they going to do to the Constitution and to punishment of crime if they're around pushing these ideas?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is where the phrase "elections have consequences" becomes abundantly clear. And not only elections have consequences, but also when you sit by and let elections go the way they went the last time that it went, and you don't ask for answers and you don't demand the truth, and you just let the bean counters count the beans they want to count instead of the whole damn pile. That's what happens when you have a media that you don't hold accountable. You have politicians you don't hold accountable. And more importantly, when you don't hold yourself accountable.
And that's the whole thing. Okay, when you don't hold yourself accountable, and you also, because it doesn't affect me, I'm not going to get involved. Mentality. Okay. Is you don't realize that even something that you don't think affects you It does. Okay. And it may not be a direct impact on you, but it does affect you. And we, as a nation, built our Constitution on the grounds of the people being involved in their governance. And being involved in your governance is a lot more than just showing up at the voting booth. Okay. It means that you are actively involved. You're involved in your local politics. You are involved with writing your representatives. You are involved in help doing jury duty. Okay. We have the power when we are jurors to make that determination of if a law is constitutional or not.
Well,
We hold that power in our hand. We hold the power in our hands as jurors to determine if a law is just or not. Okay, regardless of its constitutionality, we have power to say that a law is unjust, not just determine its constitutionality.
Well, I want to add to that because I say this a lot to people that you need to vote. You need to be involved in the petitions. Who gets onto the ballot? I think that's the first step of voting is be part of who gets on the ballot by signing the petitions and such. So that's your power. But I want people to realize something else because I know in all the things we're talking about, people say, well, I have no control of that. I can't do anything. Yes, you can write to your members or elected officials, but here's something bigger. I have written several pieces of legislation. None of them gone through. Fair enough. But I've written things that proposals that I want to see made into law, agreements that I want to see, resolutions in my local city. I've sent out legislation that I wanted to see as a constitutional limit on the pay of members of Congress. You can write these laws. You can get them passed. It's not some think tank that does this. It's not the politicians that gets to do this. You get to write it. You can write a bill and you can put it out there and say, you politicians, your job is to vote on this.
We've done it.
Agrees. You have the power.
We've done it in opposition of I-1639 in Washington State.
Mm-hmm.
We've also helped other states or counties in other states craft bills or resolutions because they're typically at the county level, legislation that would prevent certain violations of the Second Amendment from being enforced within a jurisdiction. Okay. That was us as private citizens. Okay. We weren't there as politicians. We weren't there as a lobbyist or whatever. Okay. And you guys can do this locally. You can do this in your towns. You can do it. Hell, you can do it in your HOA.
Well,
okay. I mean, you have a civic responsibility to be involved in how you are governed.
Well, let's look back for a minute at Obamacare.
No, God.
Just one, right? Just that ridiculous, heinous piece of tripe.
Yeah.
Was that written by the Obama administration?
Nope.
No.
Written by anybody in the House or Senate? No. It was written by a special interest group. A special interest group are the ones who put that together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same exact thing that was put together when it was called Hillary Care, 12 years earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this, and that's what it is. And when people say, well, how do these politicians write these bills? They don't even read them and this and that and everything. It's because they're not the ones introduced. They're introducing the legislation, but they're not writing it. They're not reading it. They're saying, oh, if you introduce this bill, there'll be a pretty hefty donation to your campaign. So they'll it's in line with my thinking. All right. It's always something called the special interest.
Mm-hmm.
It's always a special interest group. And until the American people start to realize that they are the most special of special interest groups, they're going to let these less special interest groups dictate everything that the rest of us have to deal with. Because if the American people actually stood up and said, you know what, this is right, this is wrong, and we want to let our voices be heard, some other group is going to fill that void, and it's going to be a group that comes along and fills that void with a check, and that's how it's going to be. And until the people start grabbing it at the grassroots level, at the local level, and start seeing that they can make positive impact and positive changes from the local level, city, state, municipalities, and work their way up, it's going to be hard for them to realize that they still are the ones that have the power. But none of it, absolutely none of it, will make a damn bit of sense unless we figure out a way how to get our electoral system back under control. One person, one vote, one legal vote. Because until that time, things are just going to keep going the way they were. You know, we've got to be more vigilant. We've got to be poll workers. We've got to be poll watchers. We've got to stand there doing the same thing. I mean, when the Black Panther Party can stand outside of an election poll in Texas, twirling their batons and not be and not be said that, oh, they're not intimidating anybody. No. Well, maybe a lot more people got to start getting out and standing at the polls and keeping a better eye on it and making sure that the same person doesn't go in 3, 4, or 5 times.
Yep.
You know, maybe we've all got to start getting involved and start realizing that if you're going to have skin in the game, you got to have some time in the game too, and you got to make that investment.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can do as private citizens that would make a significant impact on how we're represented and on how things occur in our governance. But it doesn't matter if you're not willing to get involved. Okay. There's people that claim with these claims, well, I don't do politics because I don't like politics. Well, then you deserve exactly what's happening to you.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, honestly, if you cannot be bothered, then you deserve the governance that you're getting. Okay. You deserve having your rights stolen away from you. You deserve having laws passed that you do not agree with. All this.
Well, it's not stealing it at that point. It's you're giving it away.
Mm-hmm.
You're giving them everything.
And then people that avoid jury duty because they can't be bothered. Okay, that's another thing. Okay, jury duty isn't about what you're getting paid from the court. Okay, jury duty is about your civic responsibility to ensure that the laws being passed are just and constitutional. That is a part of our responsibility, our obligation as citizens of this country. But yet, 90% or more people try to avoid jury duty whenever they're called, whenever they receive a summons to court to serve on the jury. Okay, you should look forward to serving on the jury because that is one of the ways your voice can be heard.
Well, it's kind of like what we see, since 1992 in Black culture. We've seen the growth of, well, not just what was gangster rap, which is now modern day rap. We've seen a devolving of an idea. In the 1970s, remember there used to be and I know you guys are around my age, so you may remember this. There used to be the NAACP commercials A mind
Yep.
is a terrible thing to waste. And for those who are younger, look it up. It's on, you can find them on YouTube. A mind is a terrible thing to waste. Commercials by the NAACP. Guess what? You don't see those anymore. Since 1992, instead, what you see is the rap music, which used to be called gangster rap, which is okay. I'm a drug dealer. I'm a criminal. My
I'm a pimp.
credibility goes up when I go to jail. When I try and kill people, or I have killed people, and we've seen it devolve. We've seen the black culture devolve, and we have more people who are saying, "Well, you don't need to go and finish school. That's not important. Become a drug dealer instead." And when you do that, and we're seeing that happen not just in the black culture, that's where it's very apparent. It's very wide open. I mean, again, look at 1970. You can go to college, 1992 and on, become a drug dealer. Those are the messages that have been out there over time, but we're seeing that in every aspect of American culture, where we are taking the worst aspects of our freedom and of our lives, and we're pushing that forward. And they're telling you your vote doesn't matter. Don't go to jury duty. It won't change anything. And I want to remind people, the people who are telling you not to go to college, the people who are telling you that you don't need to be married to have a family, the people who are telling you that you want to be a criminal, that you don't have a voice when you vote, that you can't change things in politics and in your community. The people who are saying that are the people who actually benefit from you doing nothing. Remember, who wins when you don't go out and vote? Who wins when you don't when you don't tell your kids, go and get an education, whether it's hands-on, like being a plumber, electrician, a carpenter, or going to a college? When you don't tell those kids that, when you don't go out and voice yourself and tell politicians they serve you, who wins? Because I guarantee you, it's not you.
Just because you don't take an interest in politics does not mean that politics doesn't take an interest in you.
Absolutely.
Well, exactly.
Absolutely.
Okay, and if you're not willing to be involved, then you are literally giving permission for somebody else to take control of your life.
Oh, and by the way, for Media Matters and all those far left groups that are going to say, "Oh my God, look at what they're saying," not once have we told you who to vote for. That's on you. You're an individual. Make up your own mind.
And that's what we said in the very beginning of this. We each have our own personal points of view, and they're going to be alike in some ways, different in another. But we're going to tell you how we feel about it, not how you should feel about it. We'll make you a couple of suggestions, but in the end, it's up to you. It's up to you to make the decisions for yourself, what's best for you, what's best for your own life, and what you think things should go. But the one thing that you don't have the right to do is dictate to other people how they should respond and how they should act and how they should think.
Exactly.
That's what being an individual is all about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that statement. I mean, we are all entitled. I hate using the word entitled. Okay, but we are all entitled to our own opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we are entitled. There are certain things you have a right to.
And we have a right to voice that opinion. We do not have the right to force others to believe in our opinion. We can try to persuade them,
Mm-hmm.
but we do not have the right to force our opinion and our beliefs on other people. Okay. That's where open dialogues come in to play. I mean, you take in, have open dialogues honestly and openly. You can learn a lot about other people. Okay. And you can also help formulate your own opinion, modify your own opinion if you need to. But you can't do any of that when all you are working on is promoting more and more divisive rhetoric.
Well, sorry. I was just texted a picture of Jeremy's new puppy.
Yeah. Come on. For a Great Dane of 4 months, it's probably as big as most dogs.
Oh, it's huge.
What a good boy.
Oh, that's cute. Love puppies. Love puppies.
Well, I'm gonna leave this wrapped up on a puppy note because I've been up since God knows what time this morning. When my puppies decided that they wanted to wake me up to make sure that I could take them out to the bathroom, and that they decided not to go out. They watched me go out and stand on the back porch and watch the mist in the air at 4 a.m. But listen, guys, thank you so much for a fantastic evening of conversation. Everybody who's out there that tuned in for however long you did, we really appreciate you coming by, stopping by, and please feel free to engage with us. We really love the conversation. We love to interact with you guys, and the more you get on board, challenge us. Give us a couple of questions. Give us a fight. Give us something to think about, something to play with. You know, we're all up for it. So
well,
you know,
and that's the thing. And we encourage, please, please, please like and share this.
Yes. And
okay.
subscribe.
The only way we can actually get people involved is by getting people to watch shows like this. Okay. Watch live streams like this. Get them in here to ask their questions. Get them in here to challenge us. Okay. Challenge our positions. We encourage that.
Yeah, bring it on. We got nothing to fear. And I'm gonna give you all something to really think about. Hummus is nothing more than Mediterranean guacamole. All right. That's now I may have crossed a line or two there. But no, yeah, hummus is Mediterranean guacamole. Change my mind if you dare.
No, I agree with that one. And it's good. But not with all the fruit and all that other filling. Just the plain old hummus.
Yeah, just some ground up chickpeas. Put it on a pita bread. That's good for me.
That's all I'm happy. Yeah. I love that.
All right, guys.
Which probably surprises everybody who knows I don't like vegetables. Yes, I eat chickpeas.
I got a great joke about vegetables, but I'm going to refrain. I'll do that one. All right, guys. Once again, thank you very much. Me and the disco ball are logging out. You guys all be safe and shoot straight.
Have a great night, Frank.
Good night.
Thank you. Yeah, Mike. So we got. I'm going to run in a little bit too, but I want to. One great thing I don't think a lot of people notice. Like I said, we're getting international attention because Agent Black, who I know from my program, he shows up every some Sundays. He is in the United Kingdom, so it's really great to know that our reach is expanding not just across the United States, it's just expanding around the world, and I love that.
Yes,
but it's especially important for people in the United States to take action.
Yeah, it is. Okay, and actually, wherever you're at, I encourage you to get involved with your politics. Okay, whether it's here in the United States, over in England, if you're in Saudi Arabia, Japan, China, I don't care where you're at. Get involved. Okay, because the more you're involved, the more you can help shape how you are governed.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's plain and simple. And this just a reminder, everything that the Liberty First Foundation does is out of pocket. If you guys want to help us, okay, help us spread the word. Okay. If you want to help us with a donation, we have donation links on our website. Our website is L1F.us. And you're welcome to go there, check out our articles, check out a lot of things that we've written over the years. And some of those articles explain exactly how you can get involved, how you can get involved in your communities, what you can do to take action. Okay. One of the things that you can do to take action is to help support groups like Liberty First Foundation, the NRA, Gun Owners of America, any number of organizations. Help support them. Okay, help them with donations. Help them spread the message, spread the word, share content. Okay, with that, I think we're going to go ahead and call it a night.
All right,
Michael, I do appreciate you. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I do appreciate the fact that you guys were here. With that, we're going to go ahead and sign off.
all right. Thank you, folks.